Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Klein. I'm the program specialist with Career and Technical Education in Santa Ana Unified, and I'm so excited that you're all here. That means you're interested in elementary robotics and applying for this incredible grant courtesy of the Google Foundation. I am so excited to welcome Ms. Meredith Hale, amazing librarian and robotics competition expert with the Robotics and Education and Competition Foundation. We call it the RECF, but the REC Foundation is who puts on all these incredible competition events for 6th through 12th grade. That's VEX 5. For 3rd through 8th grade, that's VEX IQ. That's why today's presentation is specifically targeting a 3rd grade through 8th grade with the VEX IQ. And this grant gets you everything you need. And I want to make the principals and the teachers in this call really comfortable that this is for brand new people. This grant is an outreach grant. It is meant to address the amazing students in our population, where we are looking at students that are from marginalized or underserved communities to get them interested in robotics and have the tools they need to succeed. This grant's deliverables are very easy. You have to participate in one competition and one online challenge. That's it. And you're going to meet with your mentor for 12 hours a month, but that means they're coming to you to support you. If you know nothing about robotics, this is for you, because you're going to have an expert helping you all the way along, your own personal expert. So I don't want anybody to be afraid to jump in, as long as you're willing to commit. It's like being a coach all year. If you're willing to commit, this grant is for you, because you are going to be wowed by the support and the stipend opportunity for your teachers. So without further ado, Ms. Meredith Hale.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. So the slides will go over a little bit about our program, but just to give you a little bit more information about this grant opportunity, we piloted this grant last year. We have some cool folks at Google who had this idea, and we piloted it with just 50 mentors and 50 mentee coaches last year. And it was, as everyone knows, last year was crazy for everyone with COVID, and we didn't actually even get it started until the week before winter break for the most part. So it had its ups and downs, but we've made a lot of notes, and we're really excited about getting things going for this coming year. And so the idea is, we wanted new coaches to come in. Okay, Stacey, would you mind muting your? Thank you. The idea is, we wanted to build a program, and we're hoping to have this extend eventually out to all of our new coaches. So when people come in, we know that not everyone has a big background in this, but the great thing about our program is that you don't have to. You don't have to be a science person. You don't have to be a master roboticist or any of those things to run our program. And we wanted people to know that. And we know the best way to learn is from someone who has a lot of experience. So the idea is to try to build this program so that you have someone who you can turn to and ask questions to, who is also a teacher and who also has been doing this for a while and has experience of working with kids and has that experience of running this program and can really give you useful information. We can give you training and all of that stuff until we turn blue, but that is such an important resource that nobody else can really replace. And so Google has given us this funding to also add on to that, paying a stipend to the teachers. So it's for the mentee coaches, $300 per team. You can have up to 3 teams. You'll get that just as a check at the end of the season. We're also paying a registration for up to 3 teams, and you get a robot kit for each of your registered teams. And if you register 3 teams, you'll also get a competition field and all the game elements for this year's game. So hopefully you got a chance to see that in the invite, the little video. It's also in the slides, so if you want to go back and look at it, we won't take your time right now, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go over quickly the program. But the other benefit is you have me. So I'm a team engagement manager for Southern California, Nevada. So I'm also here to support all of my teams every step of the way, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm here for whatever you need. So you have support on 2 sides. Alrighty. So that's me and a little bit about me. As Stacy mentioned, I came to the REC Foundation in the last fall. I've been here almost a year. But before that, I've spent 20 years in education, working with teachers, working with programming. I was working in a school, a 6th through 12th grade school for 8 years as the librarian and in the tech department. And I spent 8 years running a maker program. So I love to build things and teach design thinking, and I like to tinker. And before that, I worked in public libraries as a teen librarian. And before that, I worked in museum education for many years. So, and before that, I was a journalist. So I have a very varied background, but I'm all about education. So your role as a coach, this is the other beauty of our program, in my opinion. One of the biggest things about our program is we really focus on it being student-centered. So what that means is the students are doing everything. We want the students to build the robot. We want the students to do the programming. We want the students to take ownership of everything they do. Even in a competition, if they think that the referee has not scored them correctly, we want the students to say, hey, you're wrong. Or we want the students to talk to the judges. We want the students to be behind all of this, which means you don't have to know anything. So this makes it easier for people who don't know a lot about this. We want the students to figure it out and the students to learn and the students to be motivated. And again, we're going to give you those tools to really help you encourage that, but our program is very student-centered. And there are other robotics programs that aren't necessarily, but ours is. So this is the STEM education continuum. We work with VEX products. VEX has products from pre-K all the way through college. And we're working with these IQ robots, which are that number 3 there we're talking about. This is a little bit about the competition cycle. So right now we're getting teams started. People are doing tryouts and kicking off their teams. And we're getting our competitions into the calendar. You guys are in the golden space of finding competitions. So some places there aren't a lot of competitions. Southern California is not that place. We have a zillion teams. We have a lot of people who put on competitions, and it's a very active place. So it's a great place to be getting going and finding people to be supportive and all of those things. So because you're a new team, you probably won't do a lot of competing, and that's fine, but you might want to. So we ask people, we suggest people do 1 or 2 competitions, and you have through the competitions will start to wrap up in February. Then we'll have our regional championships. So if your teams do well, you might move on to the regional championships, which will happen at the end of February or the beginning of March. And then if you do really well after the regional championships, you get to go to the world championships. So this is just how those student competitions look. They start out with teamwork matches. So with IQ, one of the coolest things in my opinion is the teams show up on the field and they are working together to earn points. So they're not competing against each other. They're working together to see how many points they can score in the game. The other 2 things you might see at a competition is team interviews. So your team is working on an engineering design notebook. So everything that they are working on, they're writing down in a log and keeping track of, so we can see their process. So you don't have to participate in this, but I always encourage teams to do that. So at an event, they will talk to a set of judges who will ask them about their process and ask them about their robot. And the kids get a chance to show off what they know and what they've learned. And then the Robot Skills Challenge has 2 parts, and there is a driving skills challenge and a programming skills challenge. So in that you have 1 minute to show off to one judge or one referee. They get to program their robot and see how many points they can get in 1 minute, and then they have 1 minute to see how many points they can get by driving. And that's just the team against the clock. It's not against anyone else or with anyone else. And those skills challenge, those are fun because there is a global leaderboard basically. So as they earn points on those skills challenges, they get to see their names on that global leaderboard. So they may see teams from Turkey or China or literally all over the world and see how they rank in those teams. So that's pretty fun. I kind of went over this, but the teamwork challenge is they have these 60-second long matches where they're working together to get points. So this is the game which we talked about. Let's see, it's going to start it up. No, keep going. I'm going to let you watch that video on your own because so that we don't take up the time. I mentioned the engineering design notebook. So this is a place where they're going to keep track of all of the things that they're working on their robot. And the more complete this is, the better they will score in those judging interviews. And they can put sketches, photographs. This is just a little bit about our design process, what we like to teach. You guys can use this or not, but this is what we like to encourage. And this process of think, do, test. So we tell the kids, okay, what are you trying to figure out? What are you trying to achieve? And then building the robot and testing the robot. And then, okay, how did that go? And making notes about that, and then thinking about it and starting the process over again. So with the grant we're talking about, you will get a super kit. It'll come with all these parts. It'll give you a really good flexibility on what you can build with your robot. And if you don't know where to start, if you're someone who's brand new and has never done this before, it's okay. We give you lots of places to start. So VEX Robotics has this great place here that has build instructions, and we can go look at that in a second. And they have all these places where these little step-by-step, kind of like when you get a Lego kit, it has step-by-step instructions on how to build X design. There are a lot of robot designs that you can look at on this VEX Robotics website that give your kids a place to start. So if they have never touched a robot before, they can start with these and then say, oh, well, what if I did this to that to make it do what I want it to do? So for the coding, the option for IQ, most people use block programming. If you've ever used Scratch, looks almost exactly the same. It's a drag and drop block coding, but they do have access to text-based programming as well if kids want to start learning that. This is what it looks like. So they'll be able to just drag and drop things over to make their robot do different things. It's pretty instantaneous and satisfying. So once you've built a team, here are some roles that you can have. So people ask, like, how many kids should be on a team? The average is 4 to 6 kids on a team. There is a minimum of an IQ team of 2 kids, but you can really have as many as you like. So say there's a kid who doesn't want to be a builder or a programmer and they just want to take pictures and design the logo. That's fine. You can have kids on your team that do that, or make the t-shirt, or manage the notebook, or, you know, there are roles for all sorts of kids on the team, which I think is one thing that's very cool and inclusive. I like to encourage coaches to let kids try all the different kinds of roles, and they may figure out one's for them and one's not, or they may try something they didn't think was for them, but really does spark an interest. So I encourage kids to try out all the different kinds of roles. And I'll show you different places you're going to learn more about what these things do. But the more the kids get to actually be a part of that process of figuring out their logo and their look and those things, that gives them more ownership of the team and builds more community. So we talked a little bit at the beginning, if you weren't here yet, but about going to events. So if you apply for this grant, you are asked to go to one event, and when you get there, I'm happy to help people get ready for that. But we talked about what will happen there, but we have resources about how to get ready for your first event. This is just a little bit more for you to have on hand about your team interviews. This is a rubric that the judges use for going through your engineering design notebook. So it's a very clear rubric that they use to look at it. So you can use that to help your kids build your rubric. And the rubric they use to interview the kids on, you know, what does your robot do and how did your team members build the robot and stuff like that. This just helps you get them ready. So one thing that we have added in this grant, and it was a necessary part last year and we've made it an optional part this year, but one thing we're working with Google is getting volunteers from Google. So if we have Google volunteers, one thing they will do is, if you're interested, they will also meet virtually with your teams, or if they're local, in person, and help your kids with this stuff. So they can help your kids with the engineering design notebook. They will help you prep for interviews, so they can like work with your kids, and it's not just you doing these things. They also have the option, a team also has an option of maybe having them do a talk about how they are as an engineer in the workforce. Just, I think that's, the kids have found that really cool, you know, to be able to have an afternoon to talk to someone who is a software engineer, for example. And right now this program is sponsored by Google, but we also have interest from Tesla, Texas Instruments, and Amazon to join in with this. So right now, hopefully we'll have that buy-in soon. So the other thing you'll participate in is online challenges, and that is a great option for those kids I was talking about who may not want to necessarily hang on to driving all day, but they are really excited about making a video about their team and their progress, or create a website for their team, or creative writing, or sometimes there are math challenges. So it's like, take pictures of math in nature. So it's all sorts of STEM related challenges that you will go there. They should be released in October, and the team can pick one and work on this kind of project. Like last year, there were essays about women in STEM that inspired them, all sorts of things. So there are other things that are related to science and STEM and robotics, but are ways to participate that are not necessarily building and driving and competing with a robot. This is about Worlds. So if they make it to World Championships, it's a crazy, crazy time. I got to go to Worlds for the first time in May, and this year it will be in April, but this was actually in 2019, but we had about 35,000 people there over 2 weeks in Dallas, Texas. And it was crazy. And so it happens in 3 or 4 day chunks. So we'll have all of the elementary school IQ teams, and then we'll have all the middle school IQ teams. So it's not that many people at one time, but passes through. And here's just a little information about how qualification works. And again, I am touching the tip of the iceberg on a lot of this stuff, but you'll go to a local event, and if your team does well, then you'll qualify to regional championships. And if you do well at the regional championships, you can qualify to VEX Worlds. Or if you do that online challenge, you can have a team who's never built a robot who wins an online challenge and gets to go to Worlds. we had a couple of those that didn't actually compete last year, but got a trip to Worlds, so they had to build a robot and figure it out and go to Worlds. And the other thing is a signature event. And these are kind of fancier events. They happen at a special location, and they kind of stand outside of the normal events. They're usually kind of expensive, but you can go to these signature events, and usually the high winners of those events get to go to Worlds. Another option you have, besides that you can send kids home with, besides working on a robot in house, is VEX Code VR. There's a free version, there's also a paid version, but the free version is still pretty fun. You can work on your programming, and then there are all these challenges that they can work on and see them in action. So once you do the programming, you can see the little robot do that on the screen. Instant gratification fun. I have been known to sit with VEX Code VR in meetings and do like spirograph things and make the robot do fun things with coding. You will also get, with your team registration, a license key to VR skills. So this, you'll put that in, and you'll have access to, when you open up the coding window, you can check VR skills, a new project for VR skills. And so you can program a robot, and the new current game is included, and you can test out these things and how your programming will work and see it virtually. So this is, again, a great thing to do over a break, or if you have kids that you want to send this home with, or if you have computers at school that you want to set this up with, that kids can work on things that if other kids are building, you can have kids work on programming and testing certain things out virtually. So this is the website that Stacy mentioned that my friend and I put together. So we wanted to, a lot of our colleagues send out updates, like send out newsletters, and that's just not our style. And we wanted to have some references that were easy to find. I've talked about things like the VEX website and the REC website and all of this stuff, and it's kind of hard when you're new to know where to find all of that stuff. So we wanted to have all of those things in one place. So we've made this info portal where you will have the updates. So the first Wednesday of each month, we'll have all the current updates. And then we have region specific information and new coach resources and all of those things. And when I get out of this slideshow, we'll go there and you can look at it. We'll also be linked the REC Foundation knowledge base, which actually just got changed this week to say the library. So it's now the REC Foundation library, but it's basically like a Wikipedia only for our competition stuff. It has everything you might possibly want to know. You'll also have access to this VEX Mentor PD Plus when you have a registration. So these are basically little tutorials about competitions. And VEX also has a great STEM library. So you can select by different kind of topics and then articles galore about that. So they also have phenomenal STEM labs. So if you're teaching this in a classroom or after school, either way, they have these great lesson plans and little workshops and activities all associated with the IQ kits that you're going to get, so that you can have kids kind of get to know the materials and get to know the parts by doing these STEM labs, all free. And if you want to know more and you don't want to talk to your mentor, but I feel like the mentor is the key, but they do have these great PD certifications that are all free as well. So there is the VIQC educator, it's just 1 hour. And I always suggest people do, if you have the time, the head referee and the judge trainings. You can do them a little bit at a time. You don't have to spend the whole time at once. And when you're done with that, you have a really good idea of what the judge is looking for and how to score the game and all of those things. You're very familiar with what's going to happen at a competition and how the game works, which really gives you a good idea on how to help the kids. We do have also a mobile app library from any, depending on what kind of platform you have. But I often suggest people use either if you guys will be using IQ, the IQ app. And this has the game manual on it, which is useful if you're at an event and you want to look something up quickly about the game. And it also has a way to score the game. And the reason I think that's important is when you're at a competition, the referees will score the game and then they will check with the team and say, do you agree? And so this is a way to teach your kids how to also score the game. So it has a score pad. You can put it on any device, an iPad or a phone or a whatever, and teach the kids how to also score the game. So when they go to a competition, they can be in the know. There's also VEX VIA. So if you end up going to several competitions, this is a handy little app to have because it has all the match schedules and rankings and all of those things updated. You go and you can select the competition that you are currently at, and it will show all the teams that are there and who's up next and who's playing who. It's all posted while you're there as well, but it's handy. And I'm going through this stuff very quickly, I realize, but you have access to it all. You can go back and look through. And as you have questions, please feel free to holler at me anytime. And this is the Q&A. So these two things are useful to know. The VEX forum is kind of a peer-to-peer thing. So people will post things on the VEX forum and other peers, coaches, and students will talk to each other and answer questions and give each other guidance on things. The official Q&A is there because if there is a question about rules or any kind of judging, those questions get posted to this official Q&A, and the game design committee will answer those questions. So if you send me a question, if you're looking through the game manual and you're like, wait, does this mean this or this? Or I have a question about this. I will never answer your question because I'm not going to ever interpret the game manual because I don't want anybody, I don't want to do it wrong. And I don't want anybody to go to a competition and do something that I said that was wrong. And then everybody say, well, she said I could do it. But the Q&A is always the bottom line answer. They're official. So you can go to this Q&A and see the answer. So if you have a question that you can't find in the game manual, you might find it on the Q&A, and if not, you can ask. So this is more about that grant I just mentioned. And when you go to apply for that grant, I put a link right here in the slideshow. You can just click on that. You will need to make sure that you have an account in robotevents.com. When you click on that, it'll ask you to make an account if you don't have one already. That's the end. Yeah. So I'm going to get out of this.
Wow, thank you, Meredith. And just to reiterate before I turn off the recording, everybody, I'm going to turn off the recording so that you guys can answer your questions without just without having to worry about, you know, what kind of question you're asking. But just to once, because this recording is going to be up on our YouTube channel, in addition to link to Meredith's slides, which I just put in the chat, but both of those will be on the YouTube link so that you can spread this far and wide. I know everybody's time is really, you know, impacted and compacted right now because of all the things that are on your plate. So this will be just something you can watch casually. I know, Jessica, I wrote a how-to guide, all 30 questions are right there. The only thing you have to do is write your 3 little 500-word text responses, and Meredith advises you don't need to write all 500 words. It's not about, are you, following the rubric? This is tell your story. Why do you think you're going to be a good coach? Why do you think your kids are going to like it? And basically, she's just looking for commitment and sustainability at this point. So don't write yourself out of the opportunity. Our district is a good fit. Our students are a good fit. And you, as a brand new robotics teacher, you're a good fit. So Jessica and I have some wonderful scaffolding to help you. Again, my how-to guide, and then Jessica's going to open Zoom hours again. She did it last week. They had a Let's Write Our Grant Together day. And I think she's going to do it on Friday. Yep. And then I'll email that link out to her Zoom link, and then she'll take the lead on like visiting with you. But Meredith is super accessible and will even come and visit us from Oregon to help us out as we get moving. So without further ado, I'm going to take
I'm in
off.
Washington, but I will still come.
Yeah, sorry. We all live Oregon. Sorry about that. So I'm going to turn off the recording so that you guys can ask your questions, but don't give me a second. I got to see if I can stop. There we go. It's been a while since I've been in my full Zoom classroom. So feel free to ask your questions. I will close this Zoom until the last person has everything they need to know to get started.